Well, hello and good evening, everyone. I am Gina from Gina K Designs, and it's great to see all of you coming in from all around the world. Tonight, we're going to have a lot of fun because I'm going to show you a really fun technique that you can do with your stencils and also with your dies. So I had originally said that this was all about stencils, but you can also do this technique with dies, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this, and it stretches your supplies in a whole new way. But before we get started, let's say hello to Tom. Hey, Tom.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
What are you wrapping Christmas presents over there?
Yeah, I'm wrapping something up over here. Okay.
Oh.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Glad you're with us. Just pay no mind to that man behind the curtain.
In the dead space.
In the dead space, yes.
Well, we're going to have fun tonight. I don't know if you've seen this technique before, Tom, but I've got a couple little twists on it that I think are going to be really fun. I did show you a couple things that I made earlier.
Yeah, very cool and very kind of distressed kind of ish.
Yes, definitely has a vintage look to it.
Vintage. Yes.
All right. Well, let's get started. Now, I am going to try to make something at the end. I think I'm probably going to get 2 tags out of these techniques tonight, but I'm going to show you a bunch of different things that you can do. Now, all of these techniques use a die cutting machine, and you can use any die cutting machine that you have, and these will work. But the one thing that you're going to need is a silicone mat. Now, most die cutting machines have their own silicone mat that works with their machines and the different sandwiches. I know Spellbinders has one and Sizzix has one. So whatever die cutting machine you have, just pick up the silicone mat that goes along with that machine and you should be fine. Now I'm going to be using this silicone mat here. This is the one for the Intri-Cut. Oh, I'm zoomed in a little bit. This is the one for the Intri-Cut. Now you might see mine looks very, very dirty. It's got a lot of little paper shreds on it. That's because I've been playing with it all day. But now, some people are going to ask me, does this mat fit in other die cutting machines? And I don't know. I haven't used this particular mat with my Spellbinders machine, or I used to have a Big Shot. I don't have that machine anymore, but I haven't used this with it. But if you have this silicone mat, you can try and see if it will work. I don't even know where. Let me see here. Let me dig this out. I believe this is like a silicone mat that I believe this is part of the Spellbinders one. And ours looks a little thinner than the Spellbinders one. So it's really hard to tell. But, you know, if you're using a different die cutting machine and you're used to using shims anyway, you could certainly try it. But just pick up whatever silicone mat works with your machine. Now, I'm going to use a couple different things. So I have a die here. This is our Peace, Love, and Joy die. This is like a cover plate. I also have this really intricate snowflake cover plate. And then I have some stencils here. I have our Stellar Snowflake stencil. I guess you can see this is kind of a holiday theme, right? Probably the last holiday video of the year. Oh my goodness. That's right. It's going to be the last holiday video of the year. And then I also have this one. This is Alicia's let me get my glasses on because I can't see exactly what it says. But this is her heartfelt snowflake. I love this one because it can also be used for Valentine's Day because it really is just a bunch of hearts that go together. It's so cute. And this one, you know, goes on top of it all like that. But I'm just going to use probably 2 parts of this one for tonight's technique. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about if the mat from the Sizzix will work in the Intri-Cut. You know, I would say if you have the Intri-Cut and you have a mat from another company, just try it. You know, the good thing about the Intri-Cut is you can dial it so that it's not so tight, or you can dial it and make it a little bit tighter. So start in the middle, give it a little turn. If it feels like it's being forced, back out and make it looser and see what happens. All of these mats are relatively the same thickness, but that little tiny bit of extra thickness for one machine versus another may make a difference. But I would say give it a try. So these are going to be the ones that I'm going to use tonight. Now, I think the first thing I'm going to show you is the Peace, Love, and Joy. So let's do this one first. Now, when I'm using cover plates like this, I do like to use at least a 100-pound cardstock. Here I have a piece of ivory, and this is 120 pound, but you can use 100-pound without any issue at all. And I am going to cut this down to just about the same size as this Peace, Love, and Joy plate. Now, the Peace, Love, and Joy plate measures 4 3/4 of an inch.
Now, silicone mat is a separate purchase, right?
It is a separate purchase, yes. You would purchase the silicone mat if you wanted to do these additional techniques. And it's usually a separate purchase with most of the die cutting machines. I believe I purchased my Spellbinders one separately as well. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you're going to get some sort of sticky, you know, whether it's pixie tape or washi tape. I think for this purpose, I'm going to use some Masking Magic strips here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this piece of cardstock right onto the plate. They measure just about the same because these die plates are 3.5 by 4 3/4 of an inch. So it may not go exactly in, but it's pretty close because I hand cut it. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Masking Magic here just to secure this. So I want to secure it together so that it doesn't shift around. And I like using Masking Magic because no matter how much pressure you put on it, it doesn't tear the paper. It'll really hold everything together. So I just have it kind of taped around there like that. Okay, now let me get my die cutting machine. So is that too bright, Tom? Should I?
I think it's okay.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure. Okay, now I'm going to be using the regular plate here, the platform, and I'm also going to be using the cutting mat, but I'm not going to be doing any cutting. Instead of setting my dial on die cut, I'm going to be setting my dial on 2D embossing, okay? Because I don't want to be die cutting for this. So normally, let's just take a look at this. Normally, let me pull the handle off here for a second just to make this easier. So normally, I would be using the die cut setting for die cuts. I'm going to turn this up to the letterpress setting. And then when I use the dies, I'm going to go a little looser. When I use the stencils, I'm going to go a little tighter. So I'm going to dial either looser or tighter. Okay? All right, let's try to get the machine even. You know, I have to have it even so it looks nice on the, there we go. Okay. Let me just put the handle back on here. Okay, so now I have the platform here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this down on the platform. This is blade side up. And then I'm going to lay the silicone mat on top. And then I'm going to put my cutting mat on top. Now because I'm using a die, and the die is just a little bit thicker than the stencil, I'm going to actually loosen it a little bit. I'm going to like number 2 on the loose side. And then I'm going to go ahead and run this through my machine. Now, if this isn't tight enough, and it may take a little experimenting because different companies' die plates may be deeper or more shallow, so you might have to experiment a little bit. It didn't feel as tight as I want it to feel, so I'm going to tighten it just a little bit more and put it around 1. And then I'm going to run it through again. Okay. Alrighty. So now we'll take a look at this. So instead of cutting this design out, what it did was I do feel like this might be a little too bright to be able to see the fine details in this, Tom.
Just hold it on an angle.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
I have to really tilt it this way. But you're going to be able to see it in a minute because I'm going to ink this up. But can you see how it did like a letter press? It pressed the design in here. Now, we're going to take that design and we are going to make it a little more vintage. So you can use any kind of ink you want for this, but I would recommend using a dye ink. And I'm going to use some warm cocoa, so I'm going to give it a little bit more of a vintage look here, almost like a wood grain technique. And I'm going to just go ahead and start rubbing down onto the surface. Now, do you see how these words are coming out? Now, this is normally a die, so all of these letters would be falling out. But this is a way to kind of hurry up the process, I guess, create a more vintage look, and you're just pressing that design into your paper. Isn't that kind of cool? And it's very, very, very crisp when you do it, when you get the ink on there, right? And so you see, I'm just rubbing that ink all over it and giving it a vintagey look. Now, where the A is right here, this is a very tiny little area. So what you can do if you want a little more ink on there, you can get a blending stump and just get a little ink on that blending stump and just lightly add a little bit more color onto that part of the A. You see that? Just add it a little bit in there. Because I'm not really trying to get it down into the ivory part of that. But isn't that fun? A totally different look than what we've done in the past with this same exact die where we've cut the letters out and we've done foil behind it. This just creates a whole different look. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and add a second color. So let me get a little bit of sea glass ink. I'm just going to use a blending brush and a little bit of sea glass ink. And then I'm going to kind of colorize inside those letters with a little bit of teal. You see how that's creating that teal look in there? I really like this. I think it's really pretty. Now, if you wanted to go back, you could line this up again and cut these letters out, and then the letters would just look wood grained. They would have that wood grainish look, and you'd have that little bit of ivory going around the outside. So you could cut these out and use the letters. So isn't that fun? Just a fun way. You pop that onto a piece of black cardstock and onto a card base, and that is a quick card ready to go. And if you wanted to, you could add something like Merry Christmas. These are our sentiment strips in there. You could just add that right in there like that. And it becomes a very, very quick Christmas card. Okay, so I wanted to show you that technique. Now, let's move on and do another one with the die cutting machine and a die. So I cut some tags here. I cut one in tranquil teal and I cut one in sea glass. And these are from our decorative tag dies. That's this set right here. It's got 4 different tags. I did use this tiny one. In my last video, I added this tiny little tag onto that box of chocolates that I created, that little box with the free template. Well, this one, this is not the same die, but you could use this die for it. This is actually the new die set. I thought it was the same die set, but now I'm looking at it and it's got a different top. So let me find that die set. Where is it? Well, it is our newest die set called Vintage Tags. So you could try that die set I'm just going to do this technique on this, but do whatever tag you have. Another tag set you could use is this one, which is the tag trio. But I would say use the middle one, something that's a little bit smaller, okay? Not super big. Because here's why. Because you see how big this is? This die is bigger than this cover plate. But these will fit inside the entire cover plate, and that's what you want. So use a medium-sized tag. I'm going to use these from our vintage tags. That's what it's called. Oh my goodness. You know, I start to lose track after a while of what all the names are. I think it's the hardest part for me now is coming up with the name of something, like a new stamp set name. Because, you know, we've had a lot of stamp sets over 17 years. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I've got my die cutting machine set on 2D. Or letterpress, and then I've got it around 1 on the loose side. Yes.
Press just to zoom out a little bit.
Zoom out? Really?
Just a little bit.
Like that?
There you go.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do this twice. I'm going to do both of these because I'm not sure which one I want to use, but I definitely want to do something with the tag for a finished project. So I'm just going to pick a spot on this cover plate, and I just picked the top of this snowflake right here to kind of put the circle part of my tag, and that's just so that it's kind of centered a little bit. But it doesn't matter. I mean, you could do it off center if you want, but I think I'm going to actually decorate this with a snowflake. So like a snowflake die. So I will kind of want it to be a little more centered. Okay, and I'm just wrapping masking magic around there just to hold everything in place. And then I'm laying it blade side up, and I'm putting my silicone mat on top. What this silicone mat does is it just prevents the blade from cutting all the way through. Now I'll put my cutting mat on top. If I didn't have that silicone mat, it would cut. But this just kind of makes an impression. All right, so now I'm going to run this through. And I feel like it's just going through so easy. I can't even believe. I might tighten it up just a little bit because it's kind of hard to believe that it's actually doing anything. But I know it did something on the last one. I don't even have to hold the top. You know, usually you have to hold on so that it doesn't fly out the other side. Okay, let's see what it looks like. We'll hope for the best. All right. Get the masking magic off. I can reuse this masking magic for the other one. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, again, this might be hard to see, but if I turn it in a certain angle, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. You'll be able to see it really well when I add the ink. I'm going to do the sea glass one too, because again, I'm not sure which one I'm going to fall in love with here. So I might as well do 2. Now we're going to do stencils too. And for this one, I'm going to tighten it up again. Although I do think that looks really pretty. And when you see it in person, like when you actually see doing this in person, it's got a beautiful impression. But it's very hard to see on the camera, I think. So I'm going to go right to the center for this one, and we'll see how this goes. The thing is, I don't want to go too tight because I don't want it to cut at all. No, the silicone mat is a separate purchase. If you want to do these techniques with most machines, it's a separate purchase. I know with my Spellbinders machine, I had to buy my silicone mat separately. Okay.
And does that cut into the silicone sheet?
No, it doesn't. Not at all. All right. So now let's take these and we're going to do a little inking on these and wait to see how pretty this looks. I'm very excited to show you this because it doesn't look like a whole lot right now.
And which direction tightens it? Is it the higher number or the lower number?
You'll be able to see on there because it says loose and tight. So you're going to go toward tight if you want it tight. You're going to go toward loose if you want it loose. So it'll be very self-explanatory when you have your machine right up close. So let's start with this one. I'm going to take some Tranquil Teal ink. Can I zoom in a little here? I want you to see all the detail. So here we go. I'm going to take this Tranquil Teal ink and I'm going to start rubbing Tranquil Teal down, and look at the beautiful snowflake pattern that's starting to appear. Gosh, that's so pretty. And I love how vintage it looks. It just looks so, I don't know, just kind of rustic, even in color. Isn't that pretty? And then if you're going to use this as a tag and you want the back to look pretty too, go ahead and do the back. You're going to get a different look though on the back. On the front, it's going to ink up everything that's raised. On the back, it's going to do an outline. See what I mean? You're going to get the outline of that snowflake. But that's pretty too. That looks a little more homespun on the back, doesn't it? Yeah, if you do this on white, you could definitely sand it. Or if you ink your whole project up first and then you run it through, you could sand the ink off to create a white look.
And that, of course, works with ink cubes too, right?
Oh, sure it does. Yep. Works perfectly with ink cubes. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of extra ink around the edges here. Just right direct to paper, just to darken those up a little bit. And I think that's like one of my favorite looks. So different, right? I know, on both sides, it looks so interesting on this side, and then how different it looks on the other side. Kind of loving that. Okay, now let's see what this one looks like. Now we could go with a dark ink. Let's try a light ink first. Let's just try a little sea glass and see how it looks. We can always go darker if we don't think it's enough.
Elaine asked if a white pigment ink would work.
You could definitely use a pigment ink. Just be careful with pigment ink because they're kind of squishy pads and they can squish down into the areas that you don't want ink. The nice thing about a dye ink, especially, let me rephrase that, kind of stay away from foam ink pads in general when you're doing this technique, because foam pads are squishy and they're going to squish as you put pressure on them and sink down into the design, and you're not going to get that delicate look. Same here, you're not going to get that delicate look. They're just kind of goopier, you know what I mean? And they just squish down into things where you might not want them for this technique. For other techniques, they're great, but for this technique, you might want to stay more with a felt or linen pad. All right, I think this is too bright and I'm not getting the full feel. So I'm going to go over it with a little bit of Tranquil Teal and see how that looks. See, I like that a little bit more. I like the depth that you get out of that. That is so pretty. And then here's the other side that's just plain. It's got just the outline. Okay.
I guess you could do this with embossing folders too, huh?
You can, but I am going to, I'm going to defer talking about embossing folders because I have a surprise for you guys. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central Time, I'm going to be going live here on my channel with my bestie, Jennifer McGuire. She and I are going to be here live on my channel, and we're going to show you tons of embossing folder techniques, and we can't wait. We've been brainstorming and texting back and forth all day. And the reason why we're going live tomorrow, well, Jennifer and I wanted to go live again, but Thursday is our company Christmas party, so Tom and I won't be able to go live on Thursday. So we decided to go tomorrow instead and bring Jennifer on. So it's going to be super fun. All right, so there's two ideas right there for you with that snowflake tag or that snowflake die. And honestly, it doesn't look anything like some of the other projects that I've done with this same cover plate. I mean, if you look at the one that I did, the 2-for-1, where I used Masking Magic, and I used Masking Magic as a stencil, and then I used the piece of Masking Magic, neither one of those look like this. This looks like something completely different. That's why this is so fun, because it just stretches those supplies and creates a whole different look from the same supplies that you use for other things. All right, now let's try a stencil. So I will back out again because I know I'm too close here.
And that's 1 o'clock Central?
1 o'clock Central Time. Yes, an hour later than usual. And the reason for that is Kathy Zilski goes live at noon tomorrow, and we don't want to go on at the same time as Kathy. So we're going at 1. We'll be on right after Kathy. So if you're watching Kathy, just click over to us afterwards. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, now for this one, I'm going to use some white cardstock. I've got a piece right here of white cardstock. And I'm going to cut this down to just 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So just a 1/4 sheet of white. Okay. And I'm going to lay down my stencil first. Remember, you always want the item that's going to be doing the impression on the very bottom. Okay, so like I had the die on the bottom and then the piece of cardstock and then the mat. When you're using a stencil, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to have the stencil on the bottom, then your piece of cardstock. Okay. And if you're worried about it like moving around, you know, you can always tape it down. Like that. I don't want to tape it. I want to get it in here a little bit more though. Okay. That's just so it doesn't move around. Then I'm going to put my mat on top of that. And I'm going to put my silicone mat and then my cutting mat on top of that. Now, this you also have set for 2D or letterpress. But I'm going to tighten it way up, like all the way tight, because stencils are so thin. I mean, there's nothing to them. But this is a way that you can turn every single stencil you have into an embossing folder. So now we're going to run this through. Now, I don't know anything about how this would work on an electric die cutting machine. So I don't have a lot of advice there. So for those of you that have those machines, you'll have to play around with the sandwiches and see how it would work. If you can use an embossing folder in your die cutting machine, you can do this technique. You just kind of have to figure out how to do it. But you will need a silicone mat. Now, can you guys see that impression? See that? When I turn it that way? Can you see the snowflake in there?
Yes.
Okay. Same on this side. You can see that snowflake? It's beautiful just by itself. Like, you don't really need to do anything else. It's very much like an embossing folder. But I want to show you what it looks like when we add that ink. So I'm going to go with a blue. I'm going to go with more of a powder blue for this. And we'll see what it looks like, because I think that would be really fun. So if you want to do it on this side, now we are going to end up getting a little bit of ink on the outside too, because stencils are much thinner, and how much it protrudes, it's not as much as when you do the die type of technique like this. But it's still going to look really cool because it kind of gives you like almost like a wood grained background a little bit. So let's just try it with this color first. We'll try with the powder blue. Whoa, look at that. I love the vintagey. Oh man, that's so pretty. Isn't that just beautiful? That's so fun. And, you know, you can't get that look when you're stenciling, right? Because you can't get the texture, and you have all that beautiful texture. Now, let's say you wanted to do it differently. We will do the back, because this is going to cover here and it's going to leave white on the inside. So check that out. Can you see that? Let's zoom in just a bit. How fun is that? That's That's like an outline stamp, right? So pretty. Just from running it through and creating that texture. This side and this side. Now, if you like this side, you could take this whole thing up a notch, right? You could take your stencil as if this was a stamp, and you can put your stencil on top like this, line it up, and let me get some more masking magic. Oh, here it is. I love masking magic for everything.
Okay, a few questions.
Actually, I'm going to use pixie tape for this part. Yes.
What side of the stencil did you have facing up?
Well, in this case, it doesn't matter. But I had the side of the stencil facing up that had the writing on it so I could read it. But it really doesn't matter at all because it's the same either way.
And how much pressure are you using with the ink pad?
With the ink pad, I'm not using a ton of pressure. I'm going pretty light. But if you use some pressure and you're like, I'm not getting enough of what I'm looking for there, then go ahead and use more pressure. Just give it a try. And I would definitely say with techniques like this, don't set out to make a card. Set out to play. Just allow yourself time to play with your tools and your supplies. Cut some paper, get your tools out and just experiment and see what happens. This is how these techniques actually come about. They're not, I just try things and see what happens. I'm trying to find a purple. Give me a second here. I'm going to go with this medium lilac. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink this up, but I'm not going to do a nice blend. I'm actually going to try to stick a little bit with this. Let me just clean my finger because I just dumped it into the ink pad because I didn't use my ink stand. Let me find my ink stand.
So someone is asking, what is the sandwich for your previous die cutter? Can you even do this with that kind of die cutter?
You can do this with the Spellbinders machine. I would have to try it. I do have some videos from the past where I've done some of these techniques, and I use the Spellbinders machine, but I just don't know off the top of my head. I would have to try it and play with it a little bit. So I just can't rattle it off the top of my head. But I would think that you would use the clear plate, and then your paper, and then, the clear plate and then your stencil, the paper on top, because just make the bottom clear plate the same as my white clear plate, my platform. Just add the extra plate in there is what you really have to do. And so you'd have to give that a try. And then you'd have to see, I think on the Spellbinders machine, I had to add a bunch of shims and take one of the plates away. So I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to try it. It's just one of those things that you have to kind of experiment with a little bit. Now I'm just running in the same direction as the rest of this pattern. Okay, let's see what that looks like. We might want to add a little dark blue in there first, though, a little powder blue in there. So let's do that first. We'll get a little bit more blue in there with that purple. So I have a blue brush over here. But playing is just fun, Just give yourself a chance to play and try it. I know that if you get your Spellbinders machine out, you will figure it out. And I will look for another video that I can link to where I show some of these types of techniques using that Spellbinders machine. So I promise I'll do that. Just give me a little bit of time. I have to get home first tonight because we're still at work. So, all right, let's see how that looks. Oh, isn't that cool? Look at that. Isn't that pretty? It really has a lot of depth. It almost feels like it almost feels like you could see it sinking in. Isn't that nice? And again, this side. This is probably the side I'm going to use for my card tonight. I like it. Now this piece, I might be able to do the bigger tag. Let me see if it's big enough. Yes, I can do a bigger tag with this one. So I think I will. I think I'm going to do a bigger tag with this. But let's do this with one more stencil before we make our 2 tags. Because I want to try this with a layering stencil. So I want to use at least 2 layers from this Heartfelt Snowflake. So I'm definitely going to do my impression with this big open one. I know, it's a 3D effect, right? It's so cool. I love that.
Question, if you have foam ink pads, can you use a brayer instead of direct to paper and get the same result?
Well, you won't get the wood grain look. With the foam pads, it's a little harder to get that wood grain look because when you rub down with a foam pad, you get almost a solid inking. You don't get that kind of airiness that you get with a linen pad, but you'll get a whole different look, and it might be fantastic. So just because it's not the same doesn't mean it's not going to be spectacular. So I would definitely try it and see, how it looks. With the brayer, you'll get a lighter coating of ink, but it'll probably still be a bit more solid. But like I said, I would give it a try because you never know. I mean, what you come up with might be even more spectacular than this kind of vintagey, wood grainy kind of look. So I would definitely try it. All right, let's grab the machine again. That's kind of the cool thing, I always like to tell people what they need if they want it to look exactly like mine. But that doesn't mean it has to look exactly like mine. And by using the tools that you have, you might get a whole different super cool look. All right, so here is the platform. And I'm going to use this other piece of white cardstock for this. And then I am going to put this on the side here. We're just going to kind of go just down and off the paper a little bit. All right, so I'm going to tape this down using some masking magic on the back. Let's do this. And for those of you who just joined us, I just want to remind you guys one more time that Tom and I have our holiday Christmas party on Thursday. So we are not going to be going live, but instead we're going to be going live tomorrow, 1 hour later, and we're going to have our good friend Jennifer McGuire. She's going to be joining us, and Jennifer and I are going to show you just a million embossing folder techniques. Really fun techniques. Okay, now with the stencil again, I have this set to 2D, and I have it all the way to the tightest that it can go.
What size is that cardstock?
This cardstock is just a quarter sheet of 8.5 by 11, so it's 4.25 by 5.5, just an A2 panel. All right, so let's take a look at this. Now, I will show you this in that weird angle so you can see it. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, and then when I pull it off the front, can you see the... Boy, it's hard to see. But I think you could see it. So it's just a big kind of... It's really pretty just the way it is. It would make a really cool background just the way it is. So let's pull this up. So I'm only using the first layer of that stencil for this part of the technique. Now I'm going to use, I could use brown this time. Let me do the brown just because I have it out here. So, and it'll be a little bit more vintagey with the brown. I'll use the brown side of my scrap paper here. Okay, so if I do this side first, can you see? You get that cool... It still gives you some color on the white parts, but it looks like a wood carving almost. Looks like a Christmas cookie. I love that. And I love the way when you rub the ink pad on this that it catches the edges. you know, so the centers are a little bit lighter. Isn't that fun? It's just a big, fun old snowflake. Now let's look at the other side.
You think this would work with vellum?
Vellum's a tough one because it's really hard for ink to dry on vellum. So you would have to use an ink that would be a more permanent ink. But yeah, you could definitely do it with a more permanent ink, like a StazOn or maybe some of the other. I don't know all the permanent inks out there. Okay, so you see how this is catching in the center too? I like that a lot. Okay, now we're going to try both sides here. We're going to try layer 2 of this stencil. So I need to find my little pieces. Let me move some things away here and get my little pieces of masking magic. I might go back to this for securing down the stencil. But that's just such a cool look, isn't it? Just so fun. All right, let's lay this on top. And you can kind of see where it's supposed to go without too much of a problem. And now I'm going to try something else. I'm going to look for an ink cube. Where are my ink cubes? Oh my goodness. Here they are. Let me grab an ink cube here. I have this little drawer from, it's warm cocoa. This little drawer from Organize More. They make these. I don't know if they still make them, but Stampin' Storage has a really cool ink cube holder now too, and it like turns. It's really cool. So if they don't have this one anymore, you could check and see what else is out there. I just want to see what happens if I try to like get in here a little bit. So I'm just pressing down. But you don't want to turn. And what I mean by that is you don't want to turn with each snowflake. You want everything to go in that same up and down direction so it all makes sense. Okay. Then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this darker one, but I think I'm going to get the ink pad just because it's a little easier to work with. Maybe I'll use dark chocolate. And then I'm going to use a brown blending brush. And I'm going to just kind of rub in that same direction. Just to fill it in a little bit more. But I don't want to ruin the texture. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. That is very cool. Because if I use this and I cut it out with a big tag, I'd probably cut it like about there. And that would be pretty cool. It really feels like gingerbready to me. It feels very quaint, kind of old-fashioned. But let's try it on the other side because I'm really digging this other side look. So, let's see if I can line it up here with all the ink on it. I think I can. That looks pretty good. Okay. So I'm going to try without doing those center things. I'm going to try just inking up this brown and just kind of doing some strokes like that. You know I'm going to put my sleeve in this brown of my turquoise. It's not a turquoise. It's like an aqua sweatshirt. Okay. Let's see what that looks like. Still got that woodiness to it. Oh, that is really pretty. I love that. I wonder if I could get this in there. These are really tiny. But I think I can. Why not? We could add a whole other color in here too if we wanted. You know, we could add like a little turquoise in there to make it look a little more aged. First, I'm going to do a little more brown though. Let me do the brown first because there's a lot of parts in here. And I'm just going up and down, really catching the edges and just filling in a little bit, but not taking out too much of that texture. Just the opposite of what you try to do when you're blending with a blending brush. You know how you try not to get stroke marks and you try to make it look all nice and even? Well, if you have trouble with that, this technique is going to be for you because you don't want it to be super smooth. All right, let's see what that looks like. And then I think, oh, that's so cute. That is really adorable. I'm going to go back with this first one now. And I'm going to lay this on top of here.
So Anne wants to know, if you cut the tag out, won't it flatten it out?
It might a little bit. The whole purpose of getting it to protrude isn't so much to make it look 3D. It's so that the ink technique works. So if it does flatten it out a little bit, you're still going to have that three-dimensional look because of the way the ink grabbed when it was more three-dimensional. So I hope that makes sense. All right, so I'm just going to add a little bit of turquoise in here. Oops, that moved, but that's okay. So can you see I added just a little bit of turquoise in there just to give it a little bit more of an aged look. I do want to see what that would look like on this side too, because sometimes you don't even need to. It's just filling in a little bit of that white and kind of aging it a bit. It's not very bright. I don't know if you can see that really well. But you see how that kind of created a little bit of a greenness on there? Yes, a patina look. That's exactly the word that I couldn't think of. Thank you. You can also maybe even go in with like a little bit of sea glass in there and just kind of add a little bit. You'll see a little bit more of that. Yeah, that's pretty. I'm going to be doing this again tomorrow night with these colors, I think, with some stuff. But so there you go. So that is super fun, really cool. This I love. This one, I don't know which one I like better. I love that bit of purple in there. That's just so 3D. But I think I'm going to go with this one. And I think I'm going to go with this one. So we're going to make something out of these two. And then these two are just good ideas for you to try, just to play a little bit with your die plates and with your stencils and your 3D stencils and just see what you can come up with, because you just never know what stuff is going to look like until you try it. Okay, so let me move all of my inky stencils and everything away. And let's turn these two little tags. And remember, we're not doing card giveaways throughout the rest of this month. Instead, we're giving out gift certificates. So somebody who makes a comment tonight is going to win a $15, is that what it is, Tom? $15 Gina K Designs gift card.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to you? Sounds good to me too. Okay, so now I'm going to get my die cutting machine back. Let me just put some of this away. I'll put this away to dry for another project. We'll get the die cutting machine back here. Yes, and to enter to win, all you need to do is leave a comment. So if you guys are new to my channel, I would love it if you would subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, and there's a notification bell, and every single time I go live, you'll get a notification. And that's kind of fun because we love to have you here. Okay, so I'm going to cut this out right about here. when I cut tags out, now some people say to me, like, why don't you do the whole thing and use half for one tag and half for another tag? But I don't feel like that is enough of a snowflake for my liking. It's beautiful, but it's not enough for me. I want to see this center part of the snowflake for my tag. I just do. It's a me thing. So that's why I used an A2 piece instead of going with the full-blown, the full-blown 6x6. But you can do that, and it still looks really pretty. I just want to see that middle part. And I'm going to use a little pixie tape here. But you could actually keep this as a border for something else if you wanted to. All right, and I'm just going to flop that on the bottom because I'm cutting down into my cutting plate, and then I'm putting my platform on top. Now, don't forget, you got to turn it back to die cut. And I don't need it quite so tight, but I'm leaving it at about 3. So, did I put it back to die cut? I think I did. Yeah. Okay.
Question, when is our next release?
Our next release is hopefully January 16th. That's what we're hoping for. January 16th, and it is an amazing one. And yes, there's a new kit, and yes, you're going to love it. And it's got something really fun and new that we've never done before in a kit. Okay, so there's that tag. Isn't that pretty? And it's still pretty on the other side. So you could use either side, but I wanted a more vintage look, so I'm going with these two. Okay. And now, let's see. I have a few little cutout things that I want to use. You know, I was doing some cutting out the other day, and I showed you a bunch of things. Ooh, those suction cups, they suck. All right. But good, it's good. Okay, so I have a bunch of snowflakes that I cut out. I cut this one out. I cut this one out. I cut this one out from some foiled paper. I used my fuse for that. And that is another video. So if you're new here and you have no idea what I'm talking about, just type in Gina K Designs fuse or foiling and you will see. Now, that would be really pretty, but it might be a little bit too pizzazzy for this vintage look I'm going for. So I think I might do just a big snowflake that extends outside of that tag a little bit on this one. And then I think I'm just going to do something really simple, like have just a little sentiment strip going across like that. And that is a super easy finished tag. We'll put a few embellishments on there. And then this one, I feel like we could put some sequins on here, just some disco ball sequins so you get that little bit of sparkle when you turn it, and then just a simple sentiment on the tag like that. So let's assemble these tags. You don't always need a lot of stuff going on. And remember, if you're making a tag to hang on a wine bottle, I love this for a wine bottle. This little one, I think, that is really fun. But you might want to leave room to write something. You might want to write something on the back. Okay, so I am going to just put some glue on the back of this snowflake. I like this big snowflake. This is from our Snowflake Trio. And we did get a bunch of dies in today. I don't think they're all counted yet, so they probably didn't go back into inventory, but they should be back into inventory very soon because I know a lot of you are waiting for some of these to come back. And I'm not sure if this, what came back, but I am saying that we did get a shipment in. So if you have a big glass block or acrylic block like this, it's acrylic. You can use it as a weight to hold down your die cuts while they dry. Now, I didn't take this all the way to the edge because I kind of want it to be a little bit loosey-goosey on the edges. I just want it to be stuck more in the center. Does that look centered? I think it's not exactly centered. I'm going to move it over just a hair. Okay. So I'm kind of pressing down there on the glue, and then I'm going to just put this on top to hold it in place. There we go. Now this, I think I can tape this on. So let's do that. Oh, Tom, do you have a word of the day?
Okay.
They're asking. I looked up and all I saw was word of the day, please.
So you remember those days of going to the county fair?
Yes.
County fair, yeah, or the state fair.
Yep.
Sometimes you remember having a really bad day at the county
Yes.
fair. I think I threw my back out on the scrambler once.
Oh, no.
Lost a wallet somewhere. Sat in something on the roller coaster. I still don't know what that was. But so those kinds of days, you're not going to the amusement park. You're going to the abusement park. Today's phrase of the day, abusement park. We've all been there with the kids in tow.
Yes, we have. The abusement park. That's great. Oh my gosh, we had a ride. I'm going to say it. It's not a great word, but I'm going to say it. We had a ride. If those of you who have never been to Wildwood, New Jersey, I'm adding some sequins on here, by the way. If you've never been to Wildwood, New Jersey is a very fun place when you're a kid. Probably not as much fun for the parents. It's fun, but I mean, it's rides and it's, pizza and soft ice cream and a lot of fun stuff like that. But there was a ride called the Hell Hole. Do you remember that, Tom?
I do.
And the Hell Hole, I mean, it couldn't have been named more perfectly because you would go into this ride and it basically spun in a circle and gravity just sucked you onto the side. And then the floor would drop out from under you and you'd just be suspended in midair. And it wasn't a bad ride until the one kid would get sick on the ride. And then that's where I think the real name came from, because that was not fun.
Not too much fun being that kid either.
No. You don't end up with a lot of friends after that.
The abusement park.
The abusement park. That's what that reminded me of. Like, oh yeah, I've been to the abusement park. I've been on those rides. Okay. So I'm just putting a few extra sequins here and there on this. You can put sequins wherever you want. I'm just jazzing it up a little bit. That ride. I remember asking my dad to go on that ride. He said, absolutely not. My dad went on everything. He was one of those dads that he'd go on the roller coasters. He'd go on everything, but not the Hell Hole.
Didn't he have broken ribs on the tilt-a-whirl?
No, he broke his ribs on the roller coaster because he wanted my mom to go on the roller coaster, and she said no, she was too scared. And he's like, come on, don't be a baby. I'll be there. I'll hold on to you. And they went around a corner, and she broke his ribs. She was putting so much pressure on him. She broke his ribs. Okay, can you see a little bit of sparkle in there? So that's just a little fun. Sparkle and shine. Now, I don't really have string that matches this. Bummer. I really need to get some string. Could I put this on there? No. Doesn't really match. I guess if I put it on both, we could suffer through it. But I only have gold. And gold just, I don't know.
In this whole building, those are the only two colors you have?
I have this color, and I have gold.
Embarrassing.
I know, it's embarrassing. And this has gold in it too. Maybe I'll just do the gold. I do have some ribbon, but I don't have a lot of ribbon, and my ribbon is really thick. So I have like black and white gingham. I mean, that would be kind of cute. I could do something like that. Let's see. Let's see if it's cute. We could try it.
you know that there's a whole box of ribbon back there underneath the parking cones and the
I know.
25 skids piled high. And
I don't know what happened to all my ribbon. When we moved to this new studio, a box of something just, I don't know. It just didn't make it. It's kind of cute.
ribbons in the sky.
I'll back out a little bit here. I almost shut the camera off. I wonder what would happen if that happened. Do you think if we turned it back on, it would just work? I mean, I don't want to know, but
That's how we fix things around here.
I wonder what would happen.
Just turn it back on.
And see what happens. I really cut way too much ribbon here, but I just folded that ribbon in half to create some little fancy tails on the end there. See, I'm not a fan. This is okay if you're going to like tape it onto a present, but I like the, the loopy stuff that you can hang onto things. But this will work. This will work. Okay, so that should be stuck down pretty well. And let's go ahead and tape this down on top. Just going to check my blood sugar. Oh, it's looking good. Beautiful. It was low before I got here tonight. I tried something new, and I didn't know I could do it. So for my diabetic friends, there's something on the pump called an extended bolus. And I tried that, and I apparently didn't know what I was doing. So it got really low really fast.
The preceding statement should not be construed as medical advice of any kind. Talk to your doctor.
Thank you, my lawyer husband. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to try the gold here, and maybe I'll put some little gold baubles on here. And it's not my favorite because I think it would look better with silver, but I don't think it's going to be terrible. And I am going to go to a craft store with my daughter tomorrow because we're getting some things framed. And when I'm there, I am going to find some baker's twine in a neutral color. I'm going to find silver. I'm going to find all of it, and I'm going to have it in my studio. I promise. Okay. So I want the babies. I want the little ones. And there are some little ones here. So I think I'm just going to put on these big, right here, on the ends of these big ones right here. We'll start there and see how that goes. And I think it'll be good. Let's see. Sometimes it's good to dig right out of this too. See, I think this would look better with silver. That's my opinion. But since I have gold ribbon now, I am forced into goldness. It's going to look pretty. We'll deal. We're all good. It's cute. Am I zoomed in enough? Can you guys even see what I'm doing here? My screen is really tiny, so I know some of you watch like on YouTube on your television. Oh, and that's another question I have for you guys who are here tonight, because I posted this in our Facebook group, but I know a lot of you aren't on Facebook. And if you're watching from Twitch, we don't have a lot of Twitch people, but we have some. If I only started doing my lives on YouTube, would that work for you? I'm sure for my YouTube people it would work. But for my Facebook people, would that work? And the reason is because there's other software out there that we could try, and we might be able to get even a clearer picture. Now, I always forget to say this at the beginning. I don't know if you guys know, but there's a little gear here on YouTube where if you, you click on that little gear, you actually can get a clearer picture because you might be watching it in low grade video. I don't know why YouTube defaults to that lower quality video, probably because not everybody has high speed internet. And I know it's kind of crazy, right? But you could switch it to HD. And if you switch it to HD, the picture gets really clear. I don't know if I like these on here. Oh, let's do that. Let's do that. There we go. I think those three will look good, and I'll do the same down here. Here, here, and here. Okay. I just needed something to fill in a little bit more down here. And what's nice is with tags, you really don't have to mail them, so it doesn't matter if they've got a lot of embellishments on them, because you're going to just hang this on something. That's pretty. I like that. There we go. And that works with the gold. Again, I think the silver might have been better, but we're going to go with it because we've got the gold cording. Well, there are the tags, but this really wasn't about the tags. This was about the techniques tonight, everybody. So I hope you enjoyed these techniques, and I definitely hope that you'll give them a try. Now, Tom, we have to pick a winner who gets a $15 gift card to Gina K Designs. So, shall we pick a winner?
Okay, cheesy. Cheesy drum roll, please. And the winner tonight is Judy Joseph. Judy Joseph.
Yay, Judy Joseph. All right, Judy, all you have to do is send your name and where you want your gift card delivered, what email address, to info@ginakdesigns.com, and our customer service team will get that gift card delivered to you. Well, everybody, this was so much fun. Now, remember, no live video on Thursday. Close my drawer. No live video on Thursday, but I will be live tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central Time, an hour later than usual. We're going to have a crafternoon with our very special guest, Jennifer McGuire, and we're going to be showing you all kinds of fun embossing folder techniques, and you won't want to miss it because this is one of those videos you're going to want to bookmark and try all of the techniques. But tonight, you can try all of these techniques. Well, we want to thank you all so much for joining us. Until tomorrow, stay safe and healthy. We love you all so very much, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.